Good evening. A predatory paedophile responsible for a campaign of rape against children has been jailed for 27 years for abusing boys at a former boarding school in Worcestershire. He is the 9th staff member at Berrowood School to be convicted of historical child abuse. The school, which closed in 1992, was supposed to look after children with behavioural difficulties. Maisie Olar reports.
Keith Figes was jailed for 27 years at Worcester Crown Court for several sexual offences against 4 boys at Berrowood School in Pendock in the 1960s and 70s. Maurice Lamble was also convicted for several sexual offences against boys at the same residential school, but failing to turn up for his sentencing, has a warrant out for his arrest. I spoke to one of Figes' victims, whose words have been voiced by an actor.
Every time I put my head on the pillow, all I can see is that school. It's worse than any prison I've been in, and I spent 30 years in prison as no one would touch me inside.
Young boys were sent to the privately owned residential school by their local authorities. There they were given a laundry number. Soon that number would become their name.
I was raped there every night, 56 years ago, and I can remember it as if it was today. I'd like someone to say sorry now that they've found out that I'm not a liar. It is a weight off my shoulders. I stuck 2 fingers in the air to everyone who didn't believe me.
Keith Figes and Maurice Lamble are just the latest in a long line of staff members who worked and abused at the school that shut in 1992.
Keith Figes has been sentenced to a considerable amount of time in prison, 27 years, and I'm grateful for the court today for passing that sentence. I'm also grateful to the victims who courageously have provided their evidence and have had to wait an awful amount of long time for this day to happen.
There are like 3 dormitories and maybe 6 beds in a dormitory up there.
Darren Ingle, number 58, was a pupil there in the 1980s. He was abused by housemaster Barry Hastings when he was just 14 years old.
Mr. Hastings was being friendly. He would let me out on my own when we went to the town on a Saturday, and then he would work out I'm smoking, and then it was a case of he would wake me up at night. So I was in, towards the end I was in this dormitory that only had 2 beds at the bottom, and he would wake me up to go for his room for a smoke and a chat.
In his room, Hastings was sexually abused Darren until it got so bad, Darren had to escape.
It was survival. I mean, I was lucky because on the way, I obviously walked up the road to the motorway and by a roundabout, basically thumbed a lift, and I was lucky I got a lift from somebody who was actually going to Surrey. It was a case of I needed an excuse to be thumbing a lift at 9 o'clock at night, or 10 o'clock at night, whenever it was. And I told this guy I was on a sponsored hitchhike.
When you saw your abuser get jailed in 2019,
Yeah.
What emotions were you feeling? How did you feel when you saw him?
I thought he was small. It really was like that for me, because in here he was the big guy, the ex-SAS soldier, and I was a little kiddie. But in court, I was the adult, he was the old man with a stick.
Darren is one of many stories of abuse at Berrowood School, spanning over 4 decades. The owner, Alan Gorton, and headmaster Ron Morris, along with 4 others, were convicted for cruelty and violence against children.
If you challenged particularly Mr. Morris, you would end up, and it had come out of nowhere. You could be trying to talk to him nicely and politely and reason with him when he was maybe punishing you incorrectly, but he'd grab hold of you and put you up against the wall like a rag doll. I know what it's like to be frightened of an adult who is in authority over you, and how hard it is to stand to speak up.
Figes' defence barrister said this case made for grim listening and that his crimes were despicable, and now he has to pay for them.
That was Maisie Olar reporting from Worcester Crown Court, and you can read more about this case on the BBC News Worcester website. If you've been affected by child sexual abuse or violence, details of help and support are available at bbc.co.uk/actionline, or you can call for free at any time to hear recorded information on 0800 077 077.